Hi, and welcome to today's episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. Thank you so much for choosing the episode today and having me in your ears or maybe in front of your eyes if you're watching over on YouTube. And remember, if you are a listener, that you can watch on YouTube, which sometimes I know people do prefer. Today, we have another brilliant conversation with a fantastic guest, and this is a topic that I am super passionate about. It really is at the core of what I do in Life Now coaching. And yeah, it's one I'm excited to dive into with guest DeDee Cai, who's joining me to talk all about why you need to realize your own worth and step into that worth to really believe in the value that you have in every single area of your life. DeDee believes that your self-worth is your net worth, which we're going to dive into more and get her to explain what she means by that. And DeDee's really on a mission to empower women to up-level their lives and really live to, their own potential unapologetically, which I think I can probably say this quite confidently. I don't think the majority of women are doing right now. I think many of us are living very apologetically in our lives. So welcome to the podcast, DeDee.
Yes, thank you, Nicola, for having me. I am so excited to be here. And indeed, I'm really looking forward to this meaningful conversation. And I believe, just like you do, we do need to have a conversation around self-worth. And not only that, what that looks like for every one of us without having to wait for permission to fulfill our own fulfillment and success. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited.
Me too, because there's so much to unpack in that very small amount we've just said in the intro there, isn't there? Which we'll start getting into right after I ask you about your own most impactful healthy habit, just to find out a little bit about what supports you in your toolkit right now.
So, for my work, honestly, self-worth, I really didn't understand what that really means until I want to say I honestly started self-development really soon after, 15, just having an experience, which was considered to be a trauma. So honestly, until when I was in my late 20s was when I realized that there's a piece of me that didn't feel like I belong, nor I deserve to follow my own path. Long story short, I did everything I was supposed to. I fulfilled every single person's expectation of me, including my parents and my family, etc. To realize that I landed in a corporate job where I really truly felt like it was a prison for 6 months, and then soon after that got into an opportunity which I'm so grateful for to start our own family business in the brick and mortar space, which was salon and restaurants. And again, I did everything with I want to say with the we intention to find my own happiness and fulfillment. Unfortunately, neither of those experiences, which I'm grateful for, fulfilled what I thought was my life calling. And I didn't understand why I did what I did, but there's no reason why we should dissect that, accept that. Because I had those experiences, I knew what not to do and I know what I'm going after. And I just knew that what I envisioned was more of alignment, more happiness, and more ease, and more flow, and just creating just a living, right? Like doing what I love. And so that was I would say the start of my journey when I lost my best friend to suicide the week of our wedding. And at the same time, I discovered that I was suffering from depression and anxiety. So to say all of that is the reason why I was doing everything to stay busy and did everything for everyone else was with the intention to fulfill my own void. I just felt disconnected. I felt broken inside, etc., things like that. So in that pivotal moment was when I realized, I have to take care of myself, right? I can't I can't be following my calling or looking for my purpose if I wasn't sustaining myself. So, first and foremost, I vow to myself that no one should ever go through the experience I had that week. And then, secondly, now I have a new, renewed responsibility to take care of myself. And I would say that was the very first moment where I connected to, wow, I didn't value myself, so I did all of the things. And in reflection, my girlfriend took her own life because she didn't see value in herself. And I wanted to say that was the beginning, all of it. And then I got even deeper into self development. I started healing myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and then spiritually was the last piece. And honestly, I've been on the journey ever since. And it's just, I feel like when it comes to feeling deserving and loving yourself and feeling worthy, there's always the next level, the next layer to it, right? So I don't think I would ever arrive, never arrive. So I'm still a work in progress into today, but I have to say it has been a personal journey. And to for me to sit here and talk about this topic with you today is because I'm the living proof that no matter how you feel about yourself in the moment, or what you're going through, that there is always light on the other side.
Yeah, there is. You're absolutely right. And so what is the one habit right now that you have that helps you to feel like, just to give someone an indication of the kind of thing, and we'll dive into obviously more of what you're about when it comes to building self-worth, but for yourself, what helps you to feel well and strong each day?
Yeah, so I have my what we call non-negotiables, is what I do exactly every single day is my four F's is my faith, my fitness, family, and then fulfillment. Like
Oh,
you'll
wow.
look at my schedule and it's just those exact, and then the fulfillment piece, yeah, it's actually in that exact order. My morning routine encompasses like the uh doing devotionals, journaling, reading, and then I work out in the morning, and then I get my kids ready for school. I connect with them a little bit, drop them off, and then I work. That's my fulfillment.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
would say to really start creating a foundation, which I honestly call a system. I love system. I love efficiency. Is how you have to have a self care system, a self care routine. Mine happens to be that I do all of those things in the morning. It doesn't have to be the same for you, but for whoever is listening, I want to ask, like, what do you have in terms of a system or a process, or on a recurring basis? How are you taking care of yourself? Because
Yeah.
honestly, I learned it the hard way. I got burnt out. Then it made me realize, oh my gosh, I got burnt out because I was doing all of the things for everyone else. Oh my goodness, my girlfriend did what she did because she didn't see value in herself. I saw the world of her, like, and she was the most incredible person, but she didn't see herself that way. And so,
Mm.
until when I really have the discipline to continue with my self care routine, was when I realized, wow, this is has everything to do with how deserving I feel, and it has everything to do with feeling worthy.
Yeah. And that leads really nicely into talking about what we want to talk about with self-worth, because what you said there about realizing why you needed to take care of yourself and have that self-care routine is something that many women are struggling with. They don't take care of themselves, and there are lots of reasons for that, with you know self-worth being one of the big ones. They're not attaching the value they deserve against who they are and why they should take care of themselves. But also, when you aren't taking care of yourself, you aren't contributing positively to feeling worthy, because you aren't ticking that box to say, I'm good enough to take care of, and to invest in, and so on. So it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Yeah, is that, and so many women, there's a stat that I've read, and I didn't have it to hand actually before we started, about how many women cannot look at themselves in the mirror. And this is ultimately linked to their lacking self-worth. And it's a really high percentage of women who cannot look
Yeah.
face on at themselves in the mirror. And, this is not about looking at yourself naked. This is just about looking at you the human that you are, and
Yes.
seeing who you are. And why do you think like so many women do struggle with their self-worth that then has this huge ripple effect negatively across the rest of their lives?
Yeah. Unfortunately, our upbringing has everything to do with that, right? Like, yes, there is also, I mean, I have a cognitive psychology background, so we can talk about, is it nature or nurture, right? I can tell
Mm,
you that it's so much more nurture, meaning it's a lot has to do. I have kids myself too. It has a lot to do with our upbringing first and foremost, right? Then after that, we have when we are in pre-adolescence and then early adulthood and then adulthood, it's then the environment, meaning our culture.
yeah.
And then our culture, unfortunately, is so ingrained with what we see on social media, and the system of our beliefs is based on what we see, not as, and we're so not intact with how we feel. And then so everything that we see becomes our, like, this is how it's supposed to be, when it's not. When I say unapologetically, it's really truly standing behind what it is that you truly want. And not, it was so okay for me to say that I didn't want to work corporate. And that was one thing. Like, that doesn't mean that is not a thing for someone else, right? And so I want to say it has everything to do with that. And that's why we have to make a decision. If you want to go after happiness and fulfillment, we're just going to have to agree that your path is not going to look like anyone else's path, and we
Mm,
have to be okay with that, and
mhm,
really embracing all of the good, and the bad with it. And I want to say one biggest piece that we teach and I live by now, that really changed everything and really truly empowered me to do what I need to do to live the life I have now, is the responsibility piece, right? Like, because of how we were brought up, there's no blame or shame around that. Like, our parents did the best they could. But now we have access to self development. We have access to so many ways and so many things that we can work through on ourselves, right?
mhm,
So things can be better. So I would say that's the biggest problem is we're not able to really see that, we are, each and every one of us is a work in progress, and we need to keep going back to our essential being of whole and complete, right? When we were born, like when we were created. And so we get drifted away with everything that I have already said, and then we lost our own way. And that's why depression, anxiety, I mean, that's what happened to me, and so many of us, right? And then so many of us are also suffering in silence too, just like I did. But we have the responsibility in that to
mm.
to do things differently.
Yeah, and women are generally very hard on themselves, and certainly, I think you're younger than me, DeDee, but our kind of generation, I would say, women probably 35 upwards, especially, have been brought up, when we were young, pre-social media, but still that social, cultural aspect really, putting onto us what a successful, good enough woman should look like. There was a lot of, obviously, the 90s super wave model era, celebrity, really taking off as it did, and different things. And I just feel like we're so tough on ourselves. And I said at the start, I think many of us are living apologetically, because I hear a lot of women apologizing for how they are, if they do speak up, perhaps in a workplace, or if they've had a point of view that they've shared in a group of friends. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Or, apologizing for even being too busy, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And there's just so much,
Exactly.
that was so tough on ourselves. If we don't look a certain way, we get really hard on ourselves, and that drags us down even further. And so self-worth is really about knowing that you are good enough exactly as you are. It doesn't,
Yes.
it's not linked to how you look, is it? So how do you, like, wrap up what self-worth really means?
Yeah. Yeah. One of my mentors, I forget who said this, because I've gone through so many, but essentially, I think it was probably Tony Robbins, but he said, fulfillment or happiness, it's what you feel and how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I want to say that resonates with me so much because until I really dive deep with this self-worth piece, I never wanted to be by myself. I never wanted to be by myself. Like I want to be distracted with somebody else doing something and things like that. Like I was never content, being with myself because of all the negative thoughts, all of the self beat up, all of everything that doesn't serve me comes up. And we get to work on that, because if that's the case, then we're always going to be chasing something else. And that's how, like I said, anxiety, overwhelm, depression, and feeling a certain negative way about ourselves, that's what happens. And I think we get to really, again, I keep wanting to go back to the responsibility piece, right? Rather than thinking that it's blaming on society, blaming on our upbringing, blaming, instead of that, what do we say? Okay, perhaps all of the experiences taught us what not to do. Now we get to decide, with the knowledge and perhaps the resources that we have now, we can learn what's best to do, to take care of ourselves and go
Yeah.
after what it is that we want. But we first have to define, what success looks like, and it's not going to look like anyone else's. Like my story, it doesn't look like a corporate job, climbing the ladder and being a VP of a company, nor did it look like owning so many brick and mortars and just going around and making sure that the business is operational. No, my definition of success looks like my life right now, which is I have time for my non-negotiables, my 4 F's, and it never fails. I'm complete by the time I put my head on pillow, knowing that I've made a difference, with my work, and that I got connected to my family and I took care of myself, and it doesn't mean that, I have millions of dollars and things like that. And if I want to, yes, that could be a goal. But at the same time, by me having something is not going to bring me the fulfillment and happiness. Who I get to be, like the good mom, the great, wife, and an amazing business manager, owner and manager to my staff, is who I get to be. So I do the inspire action. So now I have the fulfillment that I have and the happiness I have in my life. So our culture in general is very backwards. We feel like, okay, if I have $1 million in the bank, I will buy all the things, which is what we usually do, right? That I want to buy, that I'm craving or deprived of. And then I am going to be happy. No, that can't be
Mm.
further from the truth. It's so backwards. So it's a be, do, have formula, not the have, do, be. Have, do, be is never going to get you there. So it's like, who do you want to be, to take the inspire action, to do what you need to do, to have ultimately what you want to have? So that's what we're struggling with. And honestly, it was an inventory. I really went deep with myself, really with the intention to heal myself. I realized, I was like, wow, I'm just chasing. I'm just chasing to have, you know, outwardly these things, but I have to work on myself first. So wealth and worthiness really is truly built and really is learned from the, worked on from the inside out.
Yeah, I love that. The way you've explained that is so powerful. And you were so right in that, you know, we're part of a culture, and this is still how it is today, not just as we were growing up, and the women, the age group that are listening to the podcast. We were, we were taught that success and happiness comes from having those external things, the good job with the high salary, or the nice car, or the detached home with 4 bedrooms, and whatever it may look like for you. And you're right, you hear this with people who win the lottery, don't you, who have this vast amount of money but are incredibly unhappy and spend all of the money, or end up in prison because they've done something, because they weren't happy in themselves. They had the things that could have led to happiness, but as you said, we have to to step into who we are. And I know you talk a lot about values. That's something I do when I work one-to-one with my clients in my signature program, because the problem is, as you said, yes, you've got, you know, the stuff going on in society and culture and in your family and how you were brought up. But, you know, through education as well, we aren't taught to know who we are and to think about what we want. And I think so many women are just stuck in that spin cycle of life of doing, 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 and just getting on with things. There hasn't been an opportunity for so many of us to get connected to who we really are and know what we really want. And often that happens, like in your story, and similarly in mine, when you hit the wall, so to speak, and have some kind of crisis, that means you need to take stock and reflect and, you know, dig into what's going on to basically pull yourself back and be able to get on and survive in life, don't you?
Absolutely. And I am so appreciative and grateful, Nicola, that you have this space so we can have this conversation to remind those to actually start the work today, right? Like don't wait until you hit a wall, right? Don't wait until when you have to try to recover from anxiety or depression or any of that, because the work is much harder than if you hear anything that we say resonates with you. Take the time to reflect on that and see, where am I? Take stock, right? Like you said, Nicola, take stock of, where am I today? Am I, if on a scale, just very generally, on a scale of 1 to 10, am I happy? Right. And if it's anything below a 7, I don't believe in perfection. So, it's great to be an 8 or 9, but we can always, it's so much more fun when you have to work on yourself and like work on the next goal, at least for me. So if you have anything below a 5 in general, it's time to really consider what's not working, right?
Yeah.
And you get to take responsibility for your life, for whatever that you already have.
Mhm.
And that the future can be very different if you're willing to put yourself through the work. So yes,
Yeah.
my philosophy is wealth is built from the inside out. And it's I really truly believe that yes, your self-worth is your net worth, because once upon a time I have a belief, right? First and foremost, of course I have to do a lot of work with money and my relationship with money. So I'm also a certified money coach as well. And that's why I chose this topic to focus on with women entrepreneurs. But I have this belief that money was, not only was I non-deserving, I was also thinking that money is also evil. Imagine that, right? Like if I think money is evil and I don't want to be an evil person, no bad person, of course I don't want the money. And if I'm not deserving, so where do you think I was? I wanted to
Yeah.
give my work for free. And every time that I was able to earn the money, I spent it all because I got rid of it. I have this belief that money is evil and I'm a good person. And so that's why truly it is wealth built from the inside out, from that sense, when I realized, wait a minute, if I want to help people, first and foremost, I have to look at it generally. I have to be able to sustain myself. And what does that mean to be able to sustain myself? Well, I have to make a little bit of a living so I can put food on the table. Okay, that makes sense, right? Like that makes sense. And then from that place, then I can continue working on myself and feel like, okay, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror either. Well, for I don't know for how long, but now I'm still working progress too. Sometimes I'm on videos like this. I always have a moment of like, wow, I'm really looking at myself. And sometimes it caught me off guard that I didn't have any ill like or negative feeling about when I'm looking at myself. So because it's work, it's not, you didn't really come to live your life now the way it is when things are not working out overnight. Like it's like one thing, unwanted thing, one negative thought next to, before you start sabotaging yourself. So I want to encourage everyone to first of all, you can't get it wrong when you want to work on yourself. You cannot get it wrong. There's no way of getting it wrong. Like your inner self, your spirit, however you want to term it, knows what you want. So anything that is moving you towards that direction of feeling more self-love and more worthy, you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
And it gets to compound over time. You can just do a little bit each day. Like literally, for a long time, I mean, it was what is it? Writing an affirmation in a mirror. You don't have to do that. You can do that in your journal, right? I even have most recently, this is my new gadget. Is it my easy button, because I'm so conditioned for it to be hard. Like, like it's like if I don't work hard on a thing, then it's almost like I don't deserve to be successful type of like
Mm.
mentality. And so I'm still working on that. So I get to tell you that it's an everyday, and you are an evolution. It's just like you get to pick on one thing that you can focus on and you can expand from. And that's how you build wealth from the inside out. Not only are you going to be completely comfortable and one day work towards having a 7-figure business and feel worthy of that, then you can actually keep it. And you brought up a really interesting concept there, where people throw the money away or overspend, things like that. As a lottery owner, or a lottery winner, right? Well, because they're not at the capacity where they understand about money or could hold the money and invest the money, because they didn't feel worthy of all of a sudden having that type of money in their account. So it is truly based from self-worth. If you were worthy enough, even if you were to, if I were to, maybe I will win the lottery today, I know I would know exactly what to do with the money, right?
Yeah.
Because I've healed my relationship with money. I have already worked through, I even have a list, like what if I win a lottery today? What's the first item I'm going to do? All of the things, like I know what to do with the money, and I will know how to invest it. I will know how to make sure that I'm going to call a lawyer. No one knows about it, all of the things, because, I feel worthy of being successful. But again, it's not an overnight thing. It's a
Yeah.
lifestyle. It's something that you can start today, and that gets to build and compounds over time.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally align with that concept of taking small steps consistently, creating change that becomes a part of who you are in your lifestyle. And those positive ripples ripple out further, and you get the compound effect over time. And I know what I was going to mention earlier was what you said about being with yourself and that being the indicator of happiness. And I think that's so key, but something again that we just aren't aware of, or really, have had reason to be informed about, unless you have stepped in to do the kind of personal development work that you and I, and maybe some others listening, have already done on themselves. Because we are distracting ourselves with lots of things, and even this threads into what we were just talking about there with people winning the lottery. It's a form of self-sabotage as well, and people go from one bad relationship to another similarly bad relationship with the same type of person, or they move from one job to just the same kind of job, and just continuously stay stuck in this cycle of self-sabotage and unhappiness, because they're just constantly looking for things to validate them and to create the happiness and success. And so it's just also interlinked, isn't it, of being comfortable with who you are and accepting and holding value for that. That's the key. Ultimately, that is self-worth, isn't it? Knowing your value. And it's different from confidence. Confidence is something we can learn and develop, and it's more of that trust in ourselves, where this is more the foundational piece of who you are at your very core, that you are a valuable enough person. And I do think a lot of women are struggling with their mental health, especially with things like depression and anxiety, and using social media as a form to distract and keep them busy. And and they're saying, well, I can't do anything to feel better, to improve my health, because I'm too busy. But yet they're busy on social media, or busy watching Netflix box sets every night for 3 hours or so on. And so it's, I think, really stepping into, in the first instance, just being comfortable with who you are and learning about who you are, which is often a very new and uncomfortable thing for us to actually begin to do, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And it's true, it's a journey, right? Like I said, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I couldn't be with myself before, it's just because you know, because of everything that goes inside, the 2 ears, it's like we rather than instead of shutting it down, right? With any emotion that I was feeling and or any experience, putting it under the rug, you just get to work on it. Because it's not,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I have good news and bad news. Unfortunately, the bad news is it's never going to go away. The good news is if you work on it, it's going to have you're going to be able to, I wouldn't say release it, but you're going to be able to manage it, right? Like, you know what's going to trigger you, you know how to shift from feeling negative to positive very quickly. And you know how to choose consciously, how you want to feel, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, because ultimately we are humans, like we have emotions, and it's about
Mm.
really embracing it, and instead of shoving it down or ignoring it, or staying in denial. And yeah, it's not comfortable work, but growth is uncomfortable, right? Growth is uncomfortable. Getting what you want, for ultimately at the end of the day, is uncomfortable. It's not meant to be easy, otherwise everyone would be doing it. You know what I mean? The top 5% and the top 1%, they don't just automatically got there overnight. They have to do the work, right? For any successful entrepreneur, as well as I do, that there's more challenges, but then there's always the other side. Like, if you stick with it, and if you're willing to lean in and really embrace it all, and
Mm.
just really trusting yourself and allow yourself the opportunity to overcome the challenges, then you get to see what you're truly capable of.
Exactly. And so just to kind of like put a bow on self-worth and why self-worth matters so much. Um there's a great quote that I've got here. Well, I've got two quotes actually, which you may be familiar with. They're in Jamie Kern-Lima's book, which is called Worthy, which is a very good book. And Jamie says, "You don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams, you stay stuck at the level of your self-worth." And that's ultimately why it matters so much, because if you don't believe you're worthy and valuable, then those things you want to create the happiness that you're seeking just aren't going to happen, because you're going to stay stuck at the level of your self-worth, which potentially is quite low. And this is kind of on the same thread. She says, you don't become what you want, you become what you believe you are worthy of in life. And
Mhm.
again, I think like we haven't necessarily got this framed as self-worth unless you now listen to this podcast and you can understand what self-worth is and why it matters. But so many of us don't believe we're worthy if we want things, but inside intrinsically we don't think we're good enough to have the happy marriage or relationship, the nice home, the successful purpose-led fulfilling job, or money in the bank, savings for a rainy day, or your retirement, whatever that might be. So yeah, and then the flip side are the negative impacts, the risks of having low self-worth, aren't there, where you are self-sabotaging, you are unhappy. And for me, I believe self-worth is created through taking care of yourself, through, like you said, self-care. And health is everything. Self-care isn't just the bubble bath. So I'd love to go into this a little bit more. But yeah, I didn't have self-worth for all of my adult life. I lost my self-worth at quite a young age, probably about 17, when I started college after school. And it got worse and worse. And then I developed anxiety and panic disorder and had pretty much non-existent self-worth. Sometimes I could kind of put a smile on it and try to be confident, but intrinsically I didn't have any worth. I really thought I was a flawed, inadequate human being. And self-worth wasn't something I was trying to look for, because I didn't know it existed. I was just trying to fix what I thought were problems that made me an abnormal person. And so it's been a very long journey for me. And like you, finally, when I started to do the self-development work and realized self-worth was the problem, and then
Mhm.
confidence would come once I knew I was good enough, that was just a game changer. And so
Mhm.
yeah, like in your story, you've talked about burning out and having depression and anxiety. And so when you began your journey to grow your self-worth, like what were those incredible things that you then had as an outcome of having strong self-worth?
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest piece was, interestingly, my parents are divorced and I was dating my boyfriend, but I always had this fear of commitment, like this fear of getting married. And of course, culturally or statistically, right, that if you are from the divorced parents, you're going to end up being divorced.
Mm.
And I always had this fear, oh my gosh, I'm going to get divorced. I'm going to get divorced. I'm not going to get married, so I don't have to get divorced. And honestly, that was, I want to say, because once I realized it was self-worth, I was like, well, wow, there's something around getting married here that I was shying away from. Like, what is that all about? Well, obviously, because I didn't want to be divorced, and or honestly, the deeper down to that, because I was abandoned by my dad, and with the bad experiences and things like that, I just didn't realize that I feel like I wasn't deserving of a perfect man or a great relationship. So I had to do work around that. I had to
Mm.
like do really deep work around that. And finally I realized, wait, no, that's my parents' story. That's not my story. And no, I am deserving of being in a perfect, harmonious relationship, with my partner. So I did work, and then of course my husband proposed, and we've been together total like of 17 years and 11 years married. So
Wow.
it's truly that your life is going to really truly open up. Like I said, it's not just money, it's relationships, it's connections, it's community, it's like friendship, everything that what life has to offer.
Mm.
And from just the simple work of learning to love yourself, like now knowing what I know, you probably could relate. It's like, how ridiculous is that? It's all it takes is me learning how to love myself. Like, are you kidding me? Why wouldn't I? For the whole world to open up to me, right? So I understand, that it's sometimes you might not see it, and this conversation might go over your head a little bit, but ultimately I want you to just sit down quietly for yourself for just 2 minutes and just ask yourself, like, how do I feel about myself right now? How do I feel about my life right now? And if it's not, again, if it's you can't say I'm content, I'm happy, or whatever, or if there's frustration, or if there is any hesitation, or if you're feeling stuck and complacent, any of that, those are signs that you're in misalignment, to where you need to be. And it has to stop. It has to stop, because if you're not growing yourself, if you're not becoming a better version of yourself, you are
Mhm.
dying. So why would you die a slow death, knowing that
Mm.
you can become a better version of yourself because you are capable, you know?
Yeah. Oh, such powerful stuff. And, what you talked about the worth. This is the worth, the net worth of your life, isn't it? Because you could have all the money in the bank, but if you are just putting up and, you know, believing
Mhm.
things have to be the way they are, and that's in whatever, as you say, whatever part of your life, then it really doesn't matter how much money you've got, because you wouldn't get to the end of your life and go, yeah, I've had a really fulfilled, valuable, worthy life. You, even if you had all of that money in the bank. So your worth truly is you, yourself. Because if we
Yeah.
haven't gotten, with me, it's health. If you haven't got your health, what have you got? Not a lot. You are going to have so many restrictions and challenges ultimately in your life. So to get people started on their self-worth improvement journey, to wrap us up, what would be 3 simple steps you could suggest for someone to start to take to begin really stepping into their own worth, and as you said, unapologetically knowing that they are enough, they are valuable as they are?
Yeah. Okay, first and foremost, I would say move your body. Move your body. I don't care what you have to do. I don't care if you have to go walk outside, jump up and down in your room, find a trampoline. Move your body. Physical exercise is the healthiest form of medicine. movement is medicine.
Yeah.
So physically, take care of yourself physically, first and foremost. Second is I always go with the emotional side of things. Like, what lights you up? Like, what lights you up? Is it playing with your pet? Is it going to the beach? Oh my gosh, I love my happy place is going to the beach. So
Yeah.
what's the one thing that I mean, some of you guys would be like, I don't have access to that. I don't know. Turn on the video on YouTube and look at the beach, right? I'm sure that will light you up, for a few minutes, right? Like, don't tell me you don't have access to that. You have a phone. I know you have an iPhone or an Android of some sort, okay? So find out, how can you move your body? Secondly, what lights you up? And then create, honestly, a third step is create a plan to incorporate those two things. Start there. Just
Mm.
start there, and you're going to start realizing, oh my gosh, I feel better because I moved my body today. Oh my goodness, I got to actually pay, what is it? Play. I love playing with my kids or taking them places. Oh my gosh, I got to actually play for another hour with my kids today, whatever it may be. It's life of happiness and fulfillment. It's essentially you get to do what it is that you want to do. And the practice of you identifying what lights you up gets you to always get hooked onto, okay, can I do more of that? When can I do more of that? And it could be playing a piano. It could be just anything that you're so passionate about that you can do without having to think about it. I'm not saying I'm not talking about watching Netflix. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's really one thing that really lights you up. And honestly,
Yeah.
that would be my 3 steps of how you can get started today.
Oh, I love them. Fantastic. And they are very simple. And again, this all links back to your values, who you are at the core. And I know when I work with clients, it's really interesting because, usually they come with quite a specific health goal. But then when we start to work, a lot of them have this realization when we do the inner work on who you are and what your values are, that they aren't in alignment to those, and they miss parts of how they were when they were younger, when we didn't question and put restriction and distract ourselves and so on, when we just did what came natural to us and what made us happy. And having that thing, as you said, that lights you up is often that missing hobby. It might be some kind of dancing or craft, or it could be anything at all, hiking, joining some community group, volunteering, but something that is missing because that's a part of you that you haven't connected with. So yeah, I love that. And really, just to reiterate it's about getting started. Moving your body is such a powerful tool. And I love as well that the way you've framed that just so aligns with what I do as a health coach, and stepping into those healthy habits to help you be that worthy person who knows they are enough to live the kind of life that they want. Because ultimately, we all want to be here for a great life, don't we? And we want that to be a long, full life filled with lots of happiness.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. And
Yeah.
ultimately, I love so much what it is that you do, Nicola, because if you have to feel worthy to want to feel healthy, period. Like, there's no way around that. And if you are consistent with your workout and if you're like honoring the process and things like that, oh man, if you want to work on self-worth, get yourself on a health, plan. And if you can stick with it, that's like building self-worth on steroids. Because I know for myself too, I just didn't like all of a sudden work out every single day, and it takes consistency, it takes building up, and it truly at the end of the day, it's like, yes, I am worthy enough that I'm going to stop everything at least
Mm-hmm.
an hour a day to focus on me and moving my body. That's
Mm.
just how it has to go. Like, the world does not revolve, around me, but it's not going to stop within the hour that I'm gone either. So it's okay. You'll be fine.
And you've heard all of the amazing, incredible things that you're going to get from ticking that box to say you're worth taking care of. So yeah, I've loved chatting with you today. And as I said at the start, this is something which is ultimately why I do what I want to do, because I want women to feel worthy so that they can live that great life. I do believe that you have to love yourself and value yourself to really get that, just natural fulfillment and joy and happiness across every part of your life. So if anyone would like to connect with DeDee, I'm going to put everything into the show notes, but where's the best place for someone to find out more about what you do and be inspired even more than they have been already?
Yeah, so I am definitely on social. We also have our website, which is www.fittoprofit.com. So FITTOPROFIT.com. You can definitely sign up for a complimentary profit assessment there.
Oh.
Otherwise, I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, I am on LinkedIn. Yeah, and I trust that with today's technology, if you want to find me, you will find me, and I am just a message away.
Exactly. And it's so easy to connect. And I always encourage listeners to connect with who they've, enjoyed listening to on the podcast. Let them know that you've heard them talk today and what you've taken away, because DeDee's given up her time and sharing a valuable experience as well to inspire and help other women, because we do want women to be living better, healthier, happier lives. So yeah, connect and let her know what you've enjoyed from today's conversation. So thank you so much, DeDee. As I said, I really appreciate your time and all of your passion as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having this platform and allowing me to have this meaningful conversation around
Oh, you're
self-worth.
so
Thank you. Thank you.
welcome.